Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mack Story.
All right, everybody. Thanks for stopping by the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today and listen to episode 30 of 30. We've almost made it to the end of this crazy year, 2020. And today we've made it to the end of this 30-part series on my book, Blue Collar Leadership and Culture, the 5 components for building high-performance teams. If you've listened to all of the previous 29 episodes and you're here today to listen to part 30, I'm excited. Regardless of what level on the org chart you're at, I'm excited because you have a better and deeper understanding of what cultural transformation looks like than most people on this planet. There ain't many of us out there who understand it. There's far fewer who are actually going to do it, who are going to become that kind of leader of people. So I personally want to thank you for going through this 30-part series. So today we're going to wrap it up. We're on the 4th part of the execution component. We're on the 30th part of the series, but remember this execution component had 4 parts, and it was the last component of the transformation equation. And today we're on part 4 of 4 relative to execution. The title of chapter 30 in the book is Culture Equals Character. Culture equals character. You've heard me say it. I say it all the time. I've said it a lot throughout this series. There's a reason I say it. I want it to stick. Culture equals character. Culture is nothing other than the collective character of all the people in the organization. You want to improve your culture? You got to improve the character of individuals in the organization. Or get rid of the people with poor character and hire people of higher character. But that's only going to work if the people who are already in there have a high degree of character. If you get people in that have higher degree of character than the people in the organization, most often they're not going to stay. They're going to leave. That's when you hear people say, we can't find good people. But when we do, they won't stay. Well, there's a reason they won't stay. If you don't know why, go back and listen to this series. So the subtitle of this chapter is, You Can't Improve the Culture of the Organization Without Improving the Character of the People Within the Organization. That's what I've been talking about since this episode started. You see, culture and character are built daily, not in a day. You ain't going to transform your culture of the organization or the culture of the organization in a day. Ain't going to happen. You got to do it daily. That means daily. Forever. You're not going to transform your character in a day. Ain't going to happen. You ain't going to wake up tomorrow and miraculously have a completely different character. You got to work on building it daily. You've heard my story. I've talked about it. I got very intentional in 2008. I've been doing it daily. That's why I say I read every day. I'm doing it daily. I'm trying to get better daily. You can't do it sometimes, stop for 6 months, do it again. Not going to happen. Because when you're not doing it, you're going to be drifting the other way. You're either going forward or backwards. So if you ain't going forward every day, guess what you're going every day? You're going backwards. Especially relative to people who are going forward. That's why you're going backwards. You can't sit still because there's other people out there who are going forward. And if there are people on your team or in your organization or on this planet, it doesn't matter where they're at. If somebody's moving forward and you're not moving, you're getting left behind. If a leader is not growing and developing themselves, they're being left behind by those leaders who are. If an individual is not growing and developing themselves, they're being left behind by people who are. If organizations are not transforming their culture, they're being left behind by cultures that are. I'm going to tell you some leadership truth right now here on part 30, the last chapter of this book. And if you haven't gotten this book already and you've been listening to these 30 episodes, you've got to get this book. This book is a guide and a manual. And remember, any of my books, any books you read from anybody, read the book. If you truly read the book and you like what's in the book, you value what's in the book, make sure you create a list for your resume. If you're not it doesn't matter what level you are. Create a list for your resume of all these leadership development books and personal growth books. Put them on your resume. When you try to go to these really good companies with high impact leaders, you're going to stand out like crazy. You're going to get interviewed because those kind of leaders are looking for you. You got to declare your intent. Who am I? What am I going to do in your organization? High impact leaders are looking for a well-developed, high degree of character in the people that they want to hire. Then you got to be able to talk about it. When you go for the interview, they're going to want to talk about the books you've read, the podcasts you listen to, about who you are as a person. So here's some leadership truth at this stage, part 30 of 30. Knowing why and knowing how are no longer obstacles in your path. Even if you didn't know why you needed to transform the culture and you didn't know how to do it when you started this 30-part series with me, you know why and you know how now. That's no longer an obstacle in your path. If you read that book, knowing why and knowing how are not going to be obstacles in your path. You must turn your knowledge into action. Otherwise, nothing will change. You know why, you know how, you know what to do. I've even taught you in there what to do, how to do it, and why to do it. You got to go do it. You got to go do it. Leading yourself well is hard. It's not easy. Life is happening. Things are competing for your time and your energy. Leading yourself well is hard. Doing the right thing is hard. Even when you know what to do, it's hard to do it sometimes. Leading others well is hard. You know how hard it is to lead yourself. The hardest person to lead on this planet is you. You know something you should have already done. You probably know a lot of things you should have already done. You could have done them. You just haven't led yourself well. That's because leading yourself well is hard. But leading others well is even harder because you got to get their participation. We talk about leading yourself. You've got your full participation if you can lead yourself. Sometimes you won't even follow yourself. If you won't follow yourself, why should anyone else? Think about that. If you won't follow yourself, why should anyone else? Leading others well is hard because leading yourself well is hard. Developing others is hard. If you don't lead yourself well and you don't lead others well, developing others is going to be extremely hard. The reason is because you're not modeling what you're trying to teach others to do. And again, I'm talking about in the context of cultural transformation. A lot of times leaders just want their team to go learn this, but they don't want to model it for the team. Well, developing others is going to be hard. If those people on the org chart are not modeling high impact leadership, it's going to be hard to grow and develop high impact individuals within the organization. Because the leaders are co-signing, you don't really have to do this to stay here. That's why the leader at the top got to send a clear message, and then it's got to have the discipline to adhere to that message, that if we're going to transform our culture, I expect you to be on board, and if you're not on board, I'm going to stop the bus and let you off. We're going to love you, but we're going to miss you. Developing others is hard. Building a high-performance team is hard. Now you got to get people hopefully you've had to lead them well. You had to lead yourself well. You had to lead others well. You got to develop people. All that stuff's hard. Then you got to motivate and inspire them and lead them and develop them in a way that they become a high performance team where they have high degree of character, where nobody's taking the credit. Everybody's giving credit. Everyone's communicating. There's a high degree of trust. There's a high degree of each individual taking responsibility. The leaders are taking responsibility. Everybody's taking responsibility. Very little or no blame. On a high performance team, there's no blame. If you got blame, you ain't got a high performance team. I'm painting this picture of what you're up against. It's why few people do it. But it's why the ones that do it are truly great organizations. In high impact people, low impact people, it doesn't matter who they are. Everybody wants to work there. But only high impact people get to work there. Building a high performance team is hard. It takes a long time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort. You got to be relentless. Never stops. When you see it at Chick-fil-A, I mean, it's 53 years. 53 years of the stuff I've been talking to you about in this book. That's what you see at Chick-fil-A. You don't see 53 days or 53 months. 53 years. Creating a high impact culture is hard. The reason I'm telling you all this stuff, because I want you to know it's hard. If you're leading or planning to lead your team through cultural transformation, they need to know it's hard. It's going to be hard for you. It's going to be hard for them. They also need to know is if you do the right thing, it's going to get easier. The higher up the mountain you climb, the harder it is to climb. But the easier it is to lead. More influence you're going to have. Creating a high impact culture is hard. Becoming an employer, becoming a sought after employer is hard. Remember we talked about this in the early chapters. Becoming a sought after employer. That's hard. That means people who don't work in your organization have a very strong desire to work in your organization. Creating that kind of organization is hard, where people who don't work there have a very strong desire to work there. Why is that so hard? Because becoming an employer of choice is hard. And if you listen to the series, you know what I'm talking about. Becoming an employer of choice means the people who already work in your organization have a very strong desire to continue working in your organization. That's what's going to allow you to become a sought after employer, are the people inside your organization. You see, a lot of companies, a lot of leaders, they don't understand why can't we find good people or attract good people, or even better, find great people and attract great people. It's kind of like this. If you're not developing the people in your organization, why would somebody want to come work there who values development? So you understand, high impact people, leaders, high impact team players, high impact individuals, those people value growth and development. That's why they're high impact people. If you can get them convinced to come do an interview, they're going to be interviewing you. It doesn't take, when somebody's growing and developing themselves, it doesn't take about a 30-second conversation and they can figure out if your organization is the kind of organization that grows and develops the people who already work there. If you're not growing and developing the people who already work there, that sends a very clear message to high impact people. You don't value developing the people already on your team. Why would I want to be a part of that? They wouldn't be. They wouldn't want to. They have options. High impact people have options. So few leaders will do this hard work. Few leaders are going to do the hard work I've been talking to you about over these last 30 weeks. Most of them, many of them, will stick to a strategy of planning to do it, hoping to do it, and wishing they would do it. See, when you're planning, hoping, and wishing, you really don't have to do anything. You just have to talk about it. And y'all already know there's a lot of leaders at all levels. They like to talk about doing stuff. They don't actually like to do stuff. Because when you have to do stuff, well, now you got to go get involved. Things start happening. It's a whole lot easier to plan it, hope for it, wish for it, but ain't nothing going to happen. See, hoping and wishing aren't strategies. They're not strategies. You must move beyond hoping and wishing for things to get better. You must commit to making it happen. Then you must make it happen. Committing to making it happen still has done nothing. But it gives other people hope. Then you've got a choice. Are you going to follow through and build trust? Or are you going to let everybody down, not follow through, and create distrust? That's on you as a top leader. Planning, hoping, and wishing, it's a waste of everybody's time. The only time it's going to be valuable is doing it. High performance teams are built daily, not in a day. Cultural transformation happens daily, not in a day. And remember the title of this chapter, chapter 30, Culture Equals Character. You see, character can be masked, but it cannot be hidden. You can try to mask your character, but you can't hide your character. Kind of like if I put on a mask literally in front of you, a complete mask over my face, and I'm in front of you, you may not know literally who I am looking at me, but you still know what I'm about. I can't hide what I'm about. I may try to mask my identity, but I can't mask who I am. Character can be masked, but it cannot be hidden. So I'm going to leave you with something today. Every time I ever speak, I end with what I'm about to tell you. When I speak live, when I'm doing on-site trainings for people, I always end with this. And I learned it from John Maxwell, who learned it from his father, who's passed away now, Melvin Maxwell. John Maxwell's father used to tell him this little riddle, he called it. And what he would say is, 5 frogs sitting on a log. 4 of those frogs decide to jump off the log. How many are left on the log? When I'm in a room with people, a lot of times people are quick to say 1. Because I tell them in the beginning, it's not a trick question. 5 frogs sitting on the log, 4 decide to jump off of the log. How many are left? So people say 1. I told them it's not a trick question. And it's not a trick question. When they say 1, I remind them, I told you it wasn't a trick question. The answer is not 1. The answer is 5. 5 frogs sitting on a log, 4 decide to jump off. How many are left on the log? 5. Why is there 5 and not 1? Because 4 of them decided to jump off. Deciding to do something and doing it is 2 completely different things. So the reason I end on that when I'm speaking to a live audience is I want them to know whatever they thought about why Rhea and I were speaking to them, whatever changes they thought they needed to make personally or professionally in their organization, I want them to know if they decided to do something different, they have not done anything different. If you listen to this 30-part series and decided to do something different, if you listen today and decided to do something different, if you haven't actually done anything different, you're still sitting on the log. And John Maxwell actually, in one of his books, he talks about the law of diminishing intent. And what he says is, the longer we wait to do something that we know we should do now, the less likely we are to do it. If you're leaders formal authority leader, especially if you're a top level leader, maybe you've read this culture book, or you've been through this 30-part series, or you watch my 30-part video series on my YouTube channel on this book, and you decided to do it. Maybe today was the first day you decided to do it. Doesn't matter when, you just decided to do it, but you haven't done it. You're still on the log. I want to leave you with my favorite quote from Thomas Edison. And it kind of wraps all this up that I've just been talking about into one little short, tiny quote that is so powerful. It's why I love it. It's one of those quotes, I read it once and I've remembered it forever. It just burned into my brain because it's that good. Here you go, from Thomas Edison. Vision without execution is hallucination. That's powerful. One more time. Vision without execution is hallucination. I'm going to leave you with that. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mack Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mack's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.